Bonjour et bienvenue à cette conversation virtuelle de la CNG intitulée « Êtes-vous bien outillé pour gérer votre carrière ?» où vous en saurez plus sur le parcours professionnel d'Anthony Sheehan et les leçons qu'il a tirées en cours de route qui pourraient vous aider à mieux gérer votre propre carrière. Good day and welcome to this NMC virtual talk. Are you properly equipped to manage your career? Where you will learn more about Anthony Sheehan's career journey and the lesson he has learned along the way, which may help you to better manage your own career. Je suis Valérie Plourde, dirigeante régionale de la région Québec-Nunavut. Please note that our event today will be recorded and a YouTube video link will be made available in the following days. For today's session, don't hesitate to send your question through the chat. You can also add a thumbs up to the question that you're interested in. We ask you to please turn off your microphone and camera for the best experience possible, and to prevent any lags or delays, we encourage you to disconnect from your VPN. Veuillez noter que cet événement sera enregistré. Veuillez s'il vous plaît éteindre vos caméras et vous mettre en sourdine pour que nous puissions avoir la meilleure expérience possible. Vous pouvez poser vos questions dans le chat et mettre un pouce sur les questions qui vous interpellent le plus. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais reconnaître que je suis située sur le territoire du traité Grande Paix de 1701, territoire traditionnel des Mohawks. I recognize that we all work in different places and therefore on a different traditional and indigenous territory. I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on this. For today's session, I would like to introduce you to our guest, Anthony Sheehan. After 10 years in the private sector, including working as a producer for Ubisoft, Anthony joined the public service in 2014. Ever since, he has been trying to bring more agile and design practice to the GC to deliver better services to Canadians. He published an article in 2017 on this topic, which made the cover page of the Canadian Government Executive magazine. Anthony joined Transport Canada in 2019 and was appointed Director General of the Transformation, Strategy and Resolve Directorate in April 2020. Avant de joindre Transport Canada, Anthony était le directeur principal de l'exécution numérique et l'un des responsables du projet Next Generation HR and Pay et processus d'approvisionnement agile innovant. Anthony est titulaire d'un diplôme de premier cycle de l'Université de Sherbrooke, un MBA exécutif de l'école Tefler et participe actuellement à l'initiative de la Conférence canadienne du gouverneur général sur le leadership. Anthony est volontaire pour la prévention du suicide, cofondateur de l'Agile Tour Gatineau-Ottawa, ainsi que à la garderie.ca. Originaire de la ville de Québec, il habite maintenant à Elmer avec sa femme et ses deux jeunes garçons. La discussion d'aujourd'hui se tiendra dans les deux langues officielles. Soyez à l'aise d'utiliser votre langue officielle de préférence. Nous tenons à créer un climat de sécurité linguistique, alors vous pouvez choisir d'utiliser votre deuxième langue officielle si c'est votre préférence aujourd'hui. This session is bilingual. Feel free to use the language of your choice in an atmosphere of linguistic security, your first or second official language. I know we are all looking forward to an engaging session, so without further delays, here's Anthony.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. Merci beaucoup Valérie pour cette introduction. Je suis vraiment content d'être ici avec vous tous. J'espère que vous voyez bien la présentation et on peut débuter. Donc, comme vous venez d'entendre, mon nom c'est Anthony Sheehan. Très content d'être ici. Tout d'abord, félicitations à vous tous d'avoir accepté l'invitation à cette conversation virtuelle et de vouloir mieux vous outiller afin de gérer votre carrière. La première étape, c'est de comprendre en fait que gérer sa carrière, chacun de nous, on a un rôle très, très grand dans la gestion de la carrière. Donc, félicitations à vous tous d'avoir pris ce premier pas et d'avoir reconnu votre rôle dans ça. I've prepared lots of material, so let's dive right in. Valerie acknowledged the land from which she was speaking to us today. Living in Gatineau, I would also like to acknowledge that I am on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. Pour la première partie de cette session, je vais commencer par vous partager un peu d'informations sur mon parcours de carrière. Cela étant dit, Valérie vient de faire un très bon travail et a beaucoup résumé en fait ce que j'allais dire. Donc, je vais, pas ce que j'allais dire, mais le parcours de carrière. Donc, je vais aller un peu plus rapidement sur cette section-là. Donc, si jamais il y en a qui reconnaissent ce logo, c'est le personnage principal de Assassin's Creed. Donc, j'ai débuté ma carrière comme un producteur associé au studio de Ubisoft Québec. Ubisoft, c'est un des plus grands fournisseurs de jeux vidéo au monde. They make games like Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, Rainbow Six, Just Dance. Always a hit during the Christmas holiday parties, if ever we are allowed to have parties. And as an associate producer, my role was to manage multidisciplinary teams and ensure we delivered entertaining and profitable games. So it's really not easy to plan how to make memorable moments and fun. That was quite interesting from a project management standpoint. So I worked at Ubisoft for almost 5 years, and then I joined Taleo as a senior project manager. Taleo is a leading software as a service provider of human capital management solutions. It was a really interesting journey. Le parcours chez Taleo m'a permis de comprendre tout le potentiel des technologies infonuagiques et de réaliser à quel point la technologie peut vraiment transformer une organisation. Pendant que je travaillais chez Taleo, je suis déménagé de Québec pour venir m'installer à Gatineau en 2011. So shortly after moving to the NCR, I started working at Macadamian. Macadamian is a user experience agency and employs many UX researchers and design thinkers. So at Macadamian, I learned about the value of design thinking and how conducting user research can help you make sure that you solve the right problem the right way, because there's really no point doing the wrong thing right. And while at Macadamian, I completed an executive MBA. The picture on the left is taken from the Ottawa Citizen, where they purchased a full page to recognize all the graduates. And as you guessed, the little circle in red is me when I used to have a lot more hair. And during those years, I also founded the Gatineau Ottawa Agile Tour, as you heard. Just before the pandemic hit, we had our I think, the 7th event. And we had 500 people that were gathered at the Shaw Center. It was quite the experience. And then after 3 years at Macadamian, I also joined a startup in Ottawa as the vice president and general manager of a shop called Social. And it was a really interesting journey as well. So we were getting lots of revenues, but not a lot of profits because we weren't very well organized. So I was brought in to kind of help that out. Et c'est à peu près à ce moment que ce petit bonhomme est arrivé dans ma vie. Donc, pour tous ceux qui ont des enfants, vous comprendrez que ça m'a amené à me poser tout plein de questions. And as my little boy grew, it sparked new career aspirations. And when reading the book Becoming Brilliant, it captured what I was thinking of at the time. Although my son was only a baby, I kept thinking that one day he'd be a contributing citizen. And that got me thinking about what society would be like when he got older. Et c'est à ce moment que j'ai pensé plus sérieusement de joindre la fonction publique. C'est sûr qu'ayant déménagé de Québec et étant maintenant dans la région de la capitale nationale, ça aussi, ça a eu quand même une bonne influence. So sure enough, I joined OSFI in 2014 as a CS2, which came with a much lower pay and responsibilities than what I had in the private sector. I spent a bit of time at OSFI, and then I started at TBS 2016 as a CS3. At TBS, I managed projects using Agile and UX design practices, and I introduced Agile project management at TBS. In fact, during that time, I got very interested in 18F and GDS, which are the digital government entities for the US and the UK governments, respectively. C'est à ce moment que j'ai travaillé avec quelques collègues pour monter un projet afin de créer une organisation similaire au Canada. C'est grâce à nos efforts, jumelés à un très bon support politique, il faut le dire, que le service numérique canadien a éventuellement été formé. At the time, I also received an offer from Correctional Services for a CS5 position. And it was really hard for me to decide whether to stay with CDS that had really just started and was in its infancy, or to take a promotion to go to Correctional Services. So I ended up going to Correctional Services for a short stint. And then I went to NSERC and SHERC as an EX1 Deputy CIO. And that was also an interesting journey. And then the magazine that you see, the article is what Valerie was referring to, which is an article that a colleague and I published a while back, and it talks a lot about what are now known as the digital standards for the Government of Canada. In August 2018, the guy on the right in the picture, Vern von Finkenstein, asked me if I would be interested in trying to fix the Phoenix pay system. Now, no joke, my oldest son is named Phoenix. Now, obviously, as you can see by the chronology, he was born before the whole Phoenix pay system, but it's still an interesting story. So I joined his team as an EX2, working as the Senior Director of Digital Delivery, and I worked a lot on procurement. I thought that procurement was quite interesting after all of that journey. And obviously, I thought it was very important to make sure that all public servants are paid accurately and on time, which is why I wanted to try and make a difference. And finally, je me suis joint à Transport Canada en 2019. Je travaille maintenant comme directeur général de la transformation, de la stratégie et des résultats. In this role, I have the immense pleasure of leading a team in charge of supporting TC's departmental transformation, including leading TC's pivot to a flexible work model to improve service delivery and to retain and attract top talent. So that's it. That's more or less the road I traveled to get here. I got lucky at times. I also had lots of doubts along the way. I found it hard. It's not easy to manage a career, and it got me wondering that I wish I had known what I know now, and that it would have helped me to better manage my career. So that's why I thought about this topic. C'est pourquoi je suis bien content d'être ici pour vous partager quelques outils et recommandations pour vous aider. Je vais maintenant passer à la partie un peu plus intéressante. Arrêtez de parler de moi et parler un peu plus de ce qui peut vous aider, vous. Donc, quel est le bagage de leçons acquises que j'ai accumulé à travers mon cheminement de carrière? I believe that successfully managing your career fundamentally comes down to two things. One, doing good work, and two, making sure your work gets known. You can do all the networking in the world, be the best at applying at competitions, jobs, interviews, be at the right place at the right time. In the end, though, if you don't do good work and deliver results, your career will likely stall. Ainsi, de nombreux conseils et astuces dont je vais vous parler aujourd'hui sont axés sur ce point. Vous aider à réussir en tant que leader et en vous assurant que vous obteniez des résultats. I'd like to do a little bit of myth busting as well. So maybe some of you think that you can't lead if you're not at the top. Well, to be clear, you're actually never at the top. The top doesn't really exist. Si vous êtes un directeur, vous avez un DG. Si vous êtes un DG, vous avez un sous-ministre adjoint. Si vous êtes un sous-ministre, vous avez un ministre. Si vous êtes le ministre ou le premier ministre, vous avez des citoyens, l'opposition. Vous êtes un entrepreneur, vous avez des clients, des actionnaires. Donc, vous devez apprendre à diriger et à être un leader de où vous êtes. John Maxwell, in his great book, The 360-Degree Leader, speaks about leading from anywhere and the importance of leading across 360 degrees. So you need to manage your team, you need to manage your colleagues, and you also need to manage your boss. Good luck with that, right? Il parle également des différents types de leadership. Il décrit un leadership de position, donc basé sur votre titre, comme la plus primitive et la moins efficace de forme de leadership. Il affirme que la forme la plus efficace de leadership est celle où les gens vous respectent et vous suivent pour ce que vous êtes et ce que vous représentez, et non parce qu'ils sont dans votre org chart, si on peut dire. Donc, peu importe votre titre, c'est pas évidemment ça qui fait de vous un leader ou non. Another myth around leadership is that you're born a leader. Leadership is actually a set of skills and abilities that drive behaviors, and you can learn them. So what are those skills and abilities? Vous reconnaissez probablement ces icônes. C'est le profil des compétences clés en leadership pour le cadre supérieur de la fonction publique. Et non, le Conseil du secrétariat du Trésor ne m'a pas payé pour que je puisse vanter la qualité de ces compétences en leadership. Je crois vraiment qu'ils sont très bien faits. Si ce n'est pas déjà fait, je vous suggère fortement d'en prendre connaissance et de régulièrement comparer votre comportement à ce profil de compétences. Et il y a des descriptions pour les compétences attendues pour les superviseurs et les gestionnaires. Effective work in government requires dedicated and high-performing public service leaders who inspire others to do their best work for Canada and Canadians. So the key leadership competencies, or affectionately called the KLCs, define the behaviors expected of leaders in Canada's public service. Je trouvais donc utile de présenter mes recommandations selon chacun des 6 profils de compétences clés. Et si jamais vous n'êtes pas convaincu de la qualité du profil de compétences clés en leadership qu'on vient de voir, pensez à ceci. In their book, The Leadership Challenge, the authors share the results of a broad and longitudinal research into the list of the most important characteristics of admired leaders. According to the research, the top 4 traits of the most admired leaders, which have been consistent through the years, are honesty, forward-looking, inspiring, and competent. And each of these competencies are all captured in some shape or form in the 6 key leadership competencies. So let's start with the first leadership competency, creating a vision and strategy. Tout d'abord, qu'est-ce que la stratégie? Selon l'article What is Strategy du Harvard Business Review, la stratégie consiste à définir la position d'une organisation, à faire des compromis et à établir des synergies entre les activités. L'article met beaucoup d'emphase sur le fait que de définir une stratégie nécessite de faire des choix. Qu'allons-nous réaliser, mais également qu'allons-nous mettre de côté? Without making these trade-offs, you'll never be able to sharpen the saw, and you'll always be stuck in cutting wood mode. Without trade-offs, you'll probably only focus on the urgent stuff and not have enough time to focus on the important stuff. So just like when you play chess and you accept to sacrifice some pieces, as a manager, when setting a vision for your team, you need to decide what trade-offs you're willing to do. What is it that the team will do, and what is it that your team will not do? Part of creating a vision and strategy is to think ahead. When managing your team, think of what you will have achieved in a year, in 6 months, next quarter, and then work back from there. And when managing your career, don't only look at your next position, try to think a move or 2 ahead and see how your current role is building you up for the role that you'll have in 2-3 years if you know what that role looks like. A few years ago, I passed an interview at IRCC for an EX3 position. Midway through the interview, one of the ADMs that was on the board was looking at my resume and asked me when I had worked at IRCC. I looked at him a bit surprised by the question and said that I had never worked at IRCC. He then looked even more surprised and asked, well, how come do you know so much about the organization? I answered that I did my research. And sure enough, I was successfully put in the pool. J'avais regardé le plan ministériel, les audits internes, les lettres de mandat, les articles dans les médias, toutes des choses qui sont disponibles publiquement. J'avais regardé le profil LinkedIn des gens qui travaillent au sein de l'organisation et j'en avais contacté quelques-uns pour obtenir leurs impressions, la structure organisationnelle et des choses comme ça. J'étais bien préparé. Part of creating a vision, excusez-moi, je reviens. Part of creating a vision and strategy involves doing your homework. As a manager, whether to be successful in your current role or when applying to competitions, you need to understand the organization and its environment. Only when you understand the big picture can you create the right compelling vision that will deliver long-term success for you and the organization. Parlons maintenant de la mobilisation des personnes. To be a good leader and mobilize people, you need to understand teams. In the HBR article, The Discipline of Teams, the authors talk about 3 key ingredients of high-performing teams. 1, people in a team have a shared vision, which is why it's so important to create and communicate your vision. 2, they agree on the approach to fulfill the vision. And 3, they hold each other accountable. Dans votre groupe, peut-être que vous participez tous à des rencontres ensemble, peut-être que vous avez le même gestionnaire, peut-être que selon cette définition, vous n'êtes pas vraiment une équipe et vous formez plutôt un groupe de travail qui ne sera jamais aussi performant qu'une équipe. Donc, si vous êtes gestionnaire d'une équipe, je vous suggère fortement d'essayer de mettre en place ces 3 ingrédients de succès. So to be a good and inspiring leader, and to help you be successful in your career, you need to have a vision and ensure people have a common understanding and share your vision. This includes sharing the same values. This is where team charters are very useful to not only define a common vision, but also agree on the team culture and norms by which the vision will be realized. I played soccer most of my life, and I also coached for many years. In some teams, all the players would follow the ball, especially when the players were younger. In the best teams, each player knew their role and knew where to stand on the field. As a manager, it's your job to define clear roles and responsibilities. Who's on first for things? Make sure that not everyone is working on everything, but at the same time, that everybody knows who's working on what. This is important to ensure your team members agree on the approach to take to fulfill your vision. Vous pouvez tester cela dans votre équipe. Disons que vous êtes en réunion d'équipe et que vous demandez à votre équipe de produire un livrable pour la semaine prochaine. Les rôles sont-ils suffisamment clairs pour que les membres de votre équipe sachent qui va s'en charger? Ou est-ce qu'ils doivent se réunir une fois que vous êtes parti pour régler la question? Une fois que les membres de votre équipe ont une vision commune, qu'ils s'accordent sur l'approche à adopter pour concrétiser votre vision, c'est maintenant important qu'ils se tiennent mutuellement imputables. C'est dans ce contexte que c'est critique que vous gériez la performance de vos équipes. Fixez des attentes claires, surveillez et évaluez le rendement, donnez de la rétroaction honnête et gérez les problèmes de rendement. A few months into my job at Ubisoft, one of the managers came to see me and said that we needed to fix a problem. He had successfully created a team culture of accountability, and the team was getting increasingly frustrated with one of the team members. If we didn't act quickly, it's not that single employee's performance that would be an issue. It would be the whole team's. The whole team would be disengaged. The employee was placed on a remediation action plan and eventually left for another job. The team performance immediately went back up because we had demonstrated that we manage non-performance and support the team when they need it. So you should never have anything like what you see on the image in your team. Finally, the best way to see if a manager is good at mobilizing people is to ask the manager to take a vacation. In teams where there is a strong culture of holding each other accountable and that roles and responsibilities are clear, the ship is more smooth sailing even when the manager is away. In teams without these ingredients, the performance nosedives when the manager goes away. So ask yourselves, what would happen if you took a month off? Parlons maintenant de l'importance de préserver l'intégrité et le respect. Remember the list of 4 traits of the best leaders? What was number 1? Honesty. Well, this is at the core of integrity and respect. And the person that you should be the most honest with is yourself. A lot of people believe, including Zig Ziglar, that you won't be able to lead others if you can't manage yourself. But don't do any self-bashing. Don't get down on yourself. Just be honest. Be a friend to yourself, be on your team, but also be truthful. You need to be self-aware. Look yourself in the mirror. What ticks you off? What are your unconscious biases? Try to make them more conscious. How does your personality impact your behaviors and decisions in the workplace? Demandez-vous aussi ce que vous voulez vraiment retirer de votre carrière. Le travail n'est en fait qu'un élément de votre vie. Pensez à votre famille, vos amis, vos proches, vos activités de bénévolat, à vos loisirs. La vie est beaucoup trop courte pour rester dans un travail que vous n'aimez pas. Surtout dans le contexte actuel, il y a beaucoup plus de postes que de gens disponibles pour les postes. Vous avez le droit d'être pointilleux. Vous devriez être pointilleux pour votre propre bien-être. Et demandez-vous aussi quel est votre objectif final. Est-ce que vous voulez un jour devenir DG, sous-ministre? Pourquoi? Pour avoir l'occasion d'influencer davantage de personnes, pour faire bonne figure, pour tenter d'impressionner vos pairs? Peu importe la raison, assurez-vous que votre ambition professionnelle est vraiment fondée pour les bonnes raisons. Et si jamais c'est salarial, dites-vous qu'il vient un point dans l'échelon de la fonction publique où que votre taux horaire va probablement arrêter d'augmenter. Donc oui, peut-être que votre salaire est plus élevé, mais je vous assure que vous faites aussi beaucoup plus d'heures. Ce questionnement est important, puisque si vos choix de carrière ne sont pas fondés sur les bonnes raisons et vous n'êtes pas heureux, ça va paraître au travail. Et personne n'aime ça quand on travaille avec des gens qui sont un peu marabouts. Personnellement, je ne crois pas beaucoup à la capacité des gens de laisser leurs problèmes à la maison. Surtout que de ce temps-ci, tout le monde travaille de la maison. The author of a good podcast called The Happiness Lab did a lot of research into happiness, and it all starts with taking care of yourself. Eat healthy, get plenty of rest, meditate if you can, and exercise. And you can be sure that if you haven't integrated self-care activities into your current routine, it will likely get even harder as you progress in your career. So take the time to develop healthy habits now before it gets harder, or even worse, before it gets too late. Because if you don't know how to say no, or when to stop, your body will end up saying it for you. Mentoring and coaching is also a great way of being more self-aware and helping you in your career. For instance, I currently have 4 directors, and I've asked them as a formal tasking to go and find a coach and 2 mentors. So far, they've all been very appreciative of this request. Une note rapide sur la différence entre les deux. Un coach est quelqu'un qui vous pose beaucoup de questions et vous aide à cheminer à travers des situations. C'est idéalement quelqu'un qui est formellement certifié en coaching. Un mentor est plutôt quelqu'un qui a de l'expérience dans votre rôle ou dans la fonction publique. C'est habituellement quelqu'un plus senior qui est déjà passé par là et peut vous donner leur opinion sur les défis auxquels vous faites face. Avoir accès à un mentor et à un coach peut vraiment vous aider à cheminer dans votre carrière. Et il n'est jamais trop tard pour commencer. To demonstrate integrity and respect, you also need to put the greater good of your organization and Canadians above your own success. In his book Principles, Ray Dalio, who's the CEO of one of the most successful hedge funds in the world, says that people will see right through you if you're not truly focused on achieving the goal. Don't be fake. It's easy to spot and no one likes it. Et aussi, assurez-vous d'agir en premier comme fonctionnaire, ensuite comme employé de votre ministère et ensuite comme gestionnaire de votre équipe. Plusieurs personnes ont tendance à agir dans l'ordre inverse. Et quelqu'un qui place le succès de l'organisation avant son propre succès à court terme sera rapidement reconnu et valorisé. Ne pensez jamais que parce que vous êtes gestionnaire, ça veut dire que vous avez raison. Pas nécessairement. En fait, pas du tout. Tout ce que ça veut dire, c'est que vous êtes imputable. Je crois que c'est très important de distinguer d'un côté l'autorité décisionnelle et de l'autre côté l'expérience et la qualité des recommandations. I want to talk about something else that I learned in Ray Dalio's book, and it's the concept of believability. Dalio presents believability as the likelihood that someone's recommendation and proposal will be successful, which is measured by whether or not the person has done it successfully before. So if someone in your team is suggesting to do a reorganization of the team, have they done it before? Was it successful? If so, well, they would have believability, and you should probably listen to them, or at least seriously consider their recommendation. If not, then their feedback is really just an opinion. Doesn't mean they're not right, but it remains an opinion because it's not based on data. Ultimately, as a manager, you own the decision, and that is your delegated, and the authorization to make decisions is delegated to you as a manager. So you should always seek, as much as possible, believable opinions to help make the right decision. This is more or less the same thing as ensuring that you ground your decisions in data and defendable insights. So don't be scared to share information widely. Put your thoughts out there. Get others to react, whether internally or on social media. It will help you seek out believable people and help you gain confidence into your future decisions. So that means that you should actively seek out other opinions. The more diverse and varied the feedback, the better the results. That's why working in the open has so many advantages. Et nous avons plusieurs personnes dans notre société qui ne demandent que ça, l'opportunité de se faire entendre et respecter. Après les mouvements, moi aussi, Black Lives Matter, the discovery of unmarked burials near residential schools, and more, Canada's public service needs to have the diversity and the trustworthy environments to foster diverse ideas and ensure we properly represent the diverse citizenry that we serve. Creating diverse teams is also about creating multidisciplinary teams where possible. Je crois que pour offrir les meilleurs services aux citoyens possibles, il faut créer des équipes multidisciplinaires. C'est quand on amène toutes ces opinions de divers experts métiers qu'on peut vraiment arriver à quelque chose de spécial. Vous ne travaillez pas juste avec les gens de votre équipe. Travaillez avec les gens de d'autres groupes, de d'autres ministères. Souvent, on essaie de tout faire la même chose dans chacun des ministères. Let's talk about collaborating with partners and stakeholders. It's a pretty good segue, right? Pour bien collaborer avec les partenaires, il faut avant tout ne pas les voir comme une menace. Alors, qu'est-ce que ça a le rapport avec une tarte, vous me direz? Eh bien, votre progression de carrière n'est pas comme une tarte. C'est-à-dire que ce n'est pas parce que moi, je prends un gros morceau qu'il y en a moins pour vous. Au contraire, aider les gens dans votre réseau vous aidera à mieux réussir vous-même. On a une immense chance dans la fonction publique que la plupart de nos rôles sont transférables et il y a plein d'opportunités. Donc, même si vous n'avez pas gagné la compétition, il y en a probablement d'autres organisations qui cherchent des gens exactement comme vous. Seeking out and nurturing a network of people is great. So get out there, talk to people, attend events like this one, connect with folks from other departments, go on GC Connects, on social media, and make sure that you also nurture these relationships by providing value to them. And that's really important because having a lot of contacts is one thing, but if you don't provide value to them, the numbers are going to go down, if I could say. So not only support them don't only support them. Everybody likes to have people around that they can vent with, but also from a work objective standpoint. For the key people in your network, learn what they're working on, what they're struggling with, what objectives are in the performance appraisals. How can you help? And then find content and answers within your network to help them out. Because when you provide value to the folks in your network, they will jump through hoops to pay it back to you. And you never know how your network can help you support your career. For instance, during my last year at University of Sherbrooke, I was the VP of Social Affairs and in charge of organizing one of the parties to gather money to pay for our graduation activities. We found sponsors from the party, and one of them was Ubisoft. I went out of my way to provide them with a great experience and a brand visibility. I rented video games, consoles, and set up playtest stations during the party. I organized an interview for them at the local radio station. I organized speaking events at local colleges so they could help recruit more candidates. The party and the sponsorship was a great success. During the party, one of Ubisoft's recruiters came to see me and said that this was the best sponsorship investment that they had ever done. And he told me point blank, he said, I want to hire you. This directly led to my employment at Ubisoft, even though there were lots of recent graduates that had better grades than me. I delivered results, and for Ubisoft recruiters, that was much more transferable and a better predictor of success than the grades. In his book, The Like Switch, Jack Schaefer, who's a former FBA agent, explains the golden rule of friendship. If you want people to like you, make them feel good about themselves. This is really important because whether you're right or wrong with what you say, if you make people feel like crap, it won't work at all. And this is where an overemphasis on results will not make you successful in the long term. You need to not only look at results, but also look at how you made people feel as you delivered those results. It's a very delicate balance. Another very simple way to make people feel good is to smile, make them laugh, bring fun into your day. Smile, say hi, ask how people are doing. Don't take yourself too seriously. Ask how their weekend went. Be nice, be human. And demonstrate empathy. Whether it's your employees, colleagues, especially your leader, you often have no idea what they're going through. I remember when I was at TBS and I thought my manager was not making good decisions. I acted for him for 3 weeks at one point. Not the kind of acting that people kind of protect you and don't send you the hard stuff because you're acting. No, I did the kind of acting that gave me the opportunity to see what his job was really like. Whoa, I had no idea before. So you may not know what your team member is going through, maybe a divorce, through difficulties with children, through financial issues, health issues. Don't judge. Never judge. Never judge someone else. You have no idea what they're going through. And when you do, demonstrate empathy. Be human. OK, maintenant la 5e compétence clé, promouvoir l'innovation et le changement. Vous avez sûrement entendu cette citation de Charles Darwin. Ce n'est pas l'espèce la plus forte ou la plus intelligente qui survit, mais bien l'espèce la plus apte à s'adapter au changement. There's tons of job opportunities out there. Look at the GC marketplace. Call up your network. Ask them if they're looking for new people. If you're interested, move around. It doesn't need to be in another organization, just another team within where you are. It'll take you out of your comfort zone. It is uncomfortable, but that's how you learn. Et comme leader, vous allez continuellement devoir guider vos équipes à travers le changement. During my executive MBA, I got introduced to the Dan Miller formula. It's proven really useful ever since. L'approche stipule essentiellement que si vous voulez que les gens changent, vous devez 1. Montrer pourquoi le statu quo n'est pas acceptable. 2. Peindre une vision convaincante que les gens veulent. Et 3. Décrire les prochaines étapes réalistes et tangibles qui vous aideront à y parvenir. Le dernier point est très important, car les gens peuvent vouloir changer et aller là où vous voulez aller, mais s'ils ne croient pas que vous pouvez réussir, cela ne marchera pas. Vous avez peut-être vu cette image aussi qui a circulé dernièrement sur Twitter. Je crois que l'image est excellente. Pour moi, cette image représente l'importance de mettre en place un environnement de travail où les gens peuvent se concentrer sur ce qu'ils font de mieux. Personnellement, je crois que d'être trop transparent avec son équipe, oui, ça se peut être trop transparent, peut nuire à vous et leur succès. Donc, assurez-vous de partager tout et seulement l'information qui est pertinente afin de les aider à focuser sur leur travail. Comme gestionnaire, vous avez un mandat de protéger votre équipe. Alors, demandez-vous si vous êtes peut-être trop transparent. My brain often goes 200 miles an hour. I often think ahead to various risks, opportunities, impacts. One of my previous managers told me one day, Anthony, you're too smart. Not that I believe him. You create FUD. FUD? What the heck is FUD? He answered, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Wow, okay. Protect your team from uncertainty. Create stability. Create safe environments. And speaking of safe environments, afin de promouvoir l'innovation et le changement, il faut créer un environnement qui est sécuritaire, où les gens se sentent à l'aise de dire vraiment ce qu'ils pensent. Et comme mentionné plus haut, le fait d'encourager les gens à partager leur opinion ne change en rien que comme gestionnaire, c'est vous qui avez le dernier mot. Vous avez donc tout avantage d'aller chercher une opinion de tout le monde. Je vous recommande fortement le livre The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team pour en apprendre davantage sur l'importance de créer un environnement de travail où il y a suffisamment de confiance pour que les gens puissent vraiment partager leur opinion. Parce que sans cet environnement de confiance, les gens ne soumettront pas d'idées innovatrices et vous aurez de la difficulté à obtenir des résultats. Okay, so we kept the best for last, achieving results. Well, strategy, here the light bulbs, is very critical. Execution is also critical in this image, the gears. It's only when you get both that you truly deliver results. So constantly make sure that you balance both. Make sure you're doing the right thing and that you're doing it the right way. Because however you want to say it, whether it's talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words, or this one by Young, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do, ces phrases signifient tout à peu près la même chose. L'intention ne suffit pas. Donc en résumé, adoptez cette approche. Dites ce que vous allez faire, faites-le et montrez que vous avez fait ce que vous avez dit que vous feriez. En anglais, c'est do what you say you'll do. And with all the noise, the distractions, the uncertainty these days, it's important that you keep your eye on the ball. And to do that, you'll need to know what the ball is. It comes back to the first KLC. What's your strategy? What are those important things that you need to deliver on? Have a conversation with your manager about what's urgent and what's important. It's often a really interesting conversation. And how to make sure that you have enough time for the important stuff. What does success look like? This is where you've all heard of SMART objectives and goals. Well, they're really important because agreeing on the definition of done usually sets teams up for success. To deliver results, you also need to understand the path to success. I strongly suggest that all managers take basic courses in project management, or at least do a little bit of reading, to understand concepts around scope, costs, schedule, risks, issues management, and more. Lorsque vous démarrez un projet ou que vous recevez une nouvelle demande, comprenez le chemin critique, les activités nécessaires pour la réalisation du projet, et assurez-vous que la répartition des tâches est claire. To deliver results, you also need to understand your toolbox. Understand how procurement works, what contracts are in place that you can tap into. Use creating staffing solutions like Talent Cloud, free agents, micro missions, GC Connects, and so forth. It's really important to think outside the box. Another way to help generate results is to limit work in progress. That comes back to that strategy. What are your trade-offs? You're usually focused on way too many things. Keep a list, and at least every week, prioritize the list with your manager. Make sure you don't have too many things on the go. Take one thing, deliver it, and then move on to the next. Finally, when you do good work, that is, when you keep your eye on the ball and deliver incrementally, you will build trust. And according to this great book, The Speed of Trust, trust is the one thing that changes everything. And trust is based on credibility, which speaks to many of the concepts we've covered so far. Integrity and character are foundational. Intent is nice, but really only gets you so far. Capabilities and competency are key ingredients, but it really comes down to the ability to deliver and generate consistent results. Now, maybe you're thinking that I've been successful in my career. Well, I also want to make sure you see both sides of the story. Myself, I have chronic anxiety. I know that creates some fear of missing out, and my desire to be in control sometimes results in a bit of micromanagement. Being self-aware gives me the confidence to be honest with my teams, and in fact with perfect strangers, and recognize that my anxiety is impacting my behavior as a leader. And that when it is, I have to be self-aware and make sure I course correct. To grow in your career, you may have to try and try and try again, which will likely mean that you will fail many times. And it's through this process that you'll truly learn and improve. Une carrière réussie n'est pas une ligne directe. C'est imprévisible. Il y a des hauts et des bas. C'est plein d'échecs et d'inconnus. And to prove this, I thought I'd give you a little bit of inside view into only a few of the times that I failed. Quand j'étais jeune, j'ai soumis une demande d'admission au collège Pearson, qui est un des 17 collèges du monde uni. Je me suis rendu jusqu'aux entrevues finales. J'ai été parmi les 7 derniers candidats retenus pour l'entrevue. Il en prenait 4 et je n'ai pas été choisi. À travers cet échec, j'ai réalisé que je n'en connaissais pas assez sur la politique internationale et sur le Canada. Donc, j'ai fait mes recherches pour pallier à ce problème. Now, what's a chair got to do with failure? Well, at the beginning of my second year of university, just like every year, the students elected a class president. After noticing that no one put their name forward, I raised my hand to offer myself up for the role. I just wanted to make sure that we had at least a class president for the year. Le coordonnateur des élections était sur le point de me déclarer vainqueur par défaut lorsqu'un étudiant a demandé à ce qu'un vote soit organisé. Le coordonnateur des élections était un peu perplexe, étant donné qu'il y avait juste moi qui avait donné son nom. L'étudiant, qui, vous devinez, m'aimait pas beaucoup, a demandé le vote et a expliqué que les étudiants devraient avoir le choix de voter pour ou contre ma candidature. Ils ont donc placé une chaise sur le bureau du professeur à l'avant et ont demandé aux étudiants de voter soit pour moi ou soit pour la chaise. Well, you guessed it, the chair won by a vote. After a year at Sherbrooke and being DJ at the university pub, member of the university soccer team, and being focused on lots of things beside my studies, many of my engineering colleagues felt that I wouldn't represent them well and that I wouldn't take my role seriously. I ended up joining the student committee nonetheless, but just not as the president. I also went on to win numerous leadership recognitions and scholarships during my undergraduate degree. But to this day, when the chair beat me, it's a key memory. After graduating from Sherbrooke, I had an interview with Microsoft in Redmond, Seattle. They paid for my hotel, my flight to attend the interview. I went through 6 interviews back to back. I got to the last one. When going into the last interview, I was too confident. I thought they can't possibly not pick me after I've made it this far. Well, sure enough, they didn't pick me. And I learned from that failure to never be too confident. 2014, BlackBerry was one of Macadamian's key clients. BlackBerry canceled all their contracts with us, and we lost 35% of our business in a single day. Macadamian's executive team had to make tough choices, and I was one of the employees that was let go, even though I was one of the directors there. I was let go because I voiced my opinion in ways that did not make people feel good about themselves. So although I was probably often right, I didn't make people feel right. And when they let me go, I went into full denial mode. I was pissed. Mais cette expérience a changé ma vision de l'emploi, m'a rendu plus résilient, et j'ai également appris l'importance d'être positif sur les lieux de travail. And look at this one. In 2016, when I was at TVS, I wasn't sure I had made the right choice to join the public service. Remember, I was more or less a director and a VP before in a small shop, but still. And now I was a CS3 for almost a year and was having all the trouble in the world getting back to the level that was similar to what I was doing in the private sector. This is the spreadsheet I was using to track all the competitions I was involved in. The red are the processes for which I passed the initial screening but was rejected at a later stage. The middle section in green are the number of pools I was in. At one point, I was in 7 pools for almost a year and didn't get any offers. I was very discouraged at the time. The saying that second place is first loser never felt so real. And while I had lots of trouble getting a CS4 position, I ended up getting a CS5 position from correctional service. These failures taught me to be patient and that good things will eventually come. 2017, I applied to participate in the Governor General Canadian Leadership Conference, made it to the interview stage, and wasn't selected. Well, I reapplied again in 2020, and I was accepted that time. I also applied to Action Canada and was rejected. I haven't reapplied yet, but I'm thinking of potentially applying again. So I failed a lot, but I also learned a lot, and it made me stronger. So don't give up. See your failures as learning opportunities. Donc voici quelques points à retenir. Do good work. Do what you said you'd do and do it well. Livrez de manière incrémentielle. Arrêtez de commencer et commencez à terminer les choses. Stay focused. Keep your eye on the ball. Soyez gentil avec les gens. Faites en sorte que les gens se sentent bien dans leur peau. Network and help people. Connect people and content to create opportunities. Soyez bon envers vous. Soyez meilleur que vous l'étiez hier et soyez dans votre équipe. Love what you do. Find your passion and stay positive. If you don't like your job, look for another one. Acceptez les échecs. Essayez de grandir et d'apprendre de vos échecs. I showed this image before, saying that this is the road for my career. Not at all. Maybe this was more like it, and probably with a few rocks and pits and stuff in there. Je vous laisse avec ces paroles de la part de Steve Jobs en parlant de la gestion de sa carrière. Vous ne pouvez pas relier les points en regardant vers l'avant. Vous pouvez seulement les relier en regardant vers l'arrière. Je vous invite donc à avoir la confiance que les points se connecteront d'une manière ou d'une autre dans votre avenir. Vous devez avoir la confiance en quelque chose. Votre instinct, le destin, la vie, le karma, peu importe. Connect your dots, reliez vos points. Go and manage your career. You owe it to yourselves. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Anthony. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did and the NMC team did too. Now it's time for questions. So at this point, we'll open the floor to participants' questions. On est rendu à la période de questions. Veuillez, s'il vous plaît, poser vos questions en vous servant du chat. Please ask your question using the chat box. So we're gonna start first with a question that I have for Anthony. Anthony, how do the recommendation you've made change in the context of a remote work? Comment est-ce que le télétravail change les recommandations que vous venez de faire?
C'est une excellente question. Donc, il y a beaucoup de réflexions là, sur cette question-là, évidemment. Je pense que numéro un, c'est vraiment important de comprendre à quel point notre rôle est de vraiment offrir des services aux Canadiens. Le télétravail ou des arrangements de travail flexibles devraient être une façon d'offrir des meilleurs services aux Canadiens. C'est vraiment important. C'est sûr qu'en offrant des opportunités d'environnement de travail qui sont mieux pour les employés, si ça rend nos employés plus heureux, ça va en retour offrir des meilleurs services aux Canadiens. Mais c'est vraiment important de garder ça en ligne de compte. L'autre chose, c'est que des fois, il y a des gestionnaires qui vont dire, OK, je vais accepter le télétravail, mais si la performance diminue, je vais les ramener au bureau. Je pense que ce n'est pas la bonne façon de faire. Peu importe les gens travaillent où, il faut gérer la performance. C'est sûr qu'il y a certains rôles qui demandent que vous soyez au bureau, que ce soit l'accès aux informations secrètes ou d'autres choses. C'est des besoins opérationnels. Mais quand ce n'est pas des besoins opérationnels, il faut gérer la performance. Et c'est ça qui est beaucoup plus important que où la personne est placée. Et en espérant aussi que d'avoir une optique de recrutement qui est plus nationale par défaut va offrir plus d'opportunités aux gens en région. Parce que, comme je mentionnais, c'est super important que la fonction publique soit représentative de notre pays. Et notre pays, c'est pas Ottawa.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. We're having question in the chat box. Then thank you for sending your question. This one here. Thank you for sharing. So insightful during your year as a CS3. How did you cope with the reduced responsibility and perhaps reduced challenges at work compared to your previous roles? What was your motivation affected? Alors, donc, en français, comment, durant vos années de CS3, votre année de CS3, vous avez dealé avec la réduction de vos responsabilités et peut-être même la réduction de vos défis de travail comparativement à vos rôles précédents. Comment est-ce que ça a affecté votre motivation? À vous, Anthony.
Super bonne question. A few things. I had been let go from academia not too long before joining the public service, and I really kept that lesson in mind. That it's not about being right. It's about working with everybody to move the whole ship forward. So that really helped me to put things into consideration. Kind of leave my past behind. Whatever I was before in the organization, I do my best. You can lead from anywhere. It's not because I was a CS3 that I couldn't lead. My managers at the time did a great job. They gave me more and more to do, and I didn't complain. That's something I didn't talk about, but it's a little bit more difficult in the public sector. But I've always tried to be in a position where my market worth was more than my compensation. Because when you're paid more than what you're worth, if I could say from a pure business standpoint, obviously not from a human standpoint, but then you position yourself at risk. So I was in a position where I thought that I can contribute more value to the organization than most CS3s and at the time, and that's also a good place to be, if I could say. The other thing is that I discussed this exactly with my therapist, and I said, "Oh, geez, I'm not sure I'm at the right place. I'm not sure I made the right move." She's like, "Well, there's more to life than work, right?" And that's where I, started the Agile Ottawa Gatineau tour. That's when I started thinking about creating a startup and so forth. So I went to get gratification in other areas of my life that really helped me be less grumpy. And then I worked. I was more energized and more focused. So thanks for the great question.
Thank you, Anthony. And speaking about motivation, we have another question regarding that topic. Quand on fait face à des échecs, comment fait-on pour garder sa motivation? Quels sont vos meilleurs conseils? So when we're facing challenges, how do we keep our motivation? What are your best advices?
So I'll dig into personal experience as well. So for anyone that has anxiety, a lot of the times what happens is that you exaggerate the likelihood of something happening and you exaggerate the impact. And I think that when we fail, we often do the same thing. So it's as if, momentarily we have a little bit of anxiety. So if you take a step back and you look at the failure, put yourself in a year, 2 year, 5 years from today. Is this failure going to feel so bad? Maybe it is, but probably not. That's one thing. The other thing, as you've probably heard, I know it's a bit of buzzwords, but every failure really is an opportunity to learn. So take it as an opportunity. I remember when I was reading a book that talks a lot about this, and I started thinking of kind of going to get something upstairs or downstairs in my house. I'm like, geez, I forgot this in my bedroom or whatever. Well, now I see it as an opportunity to do some exercise. So just flip everything to be an opportunity to learn. I think it'll really, really help.
Each failure is an opportunity to learn. That's why I'm keeping in mind. Thank you, Anthony. Another question for you, and please feel free to add your question into our chat box. Sentez-vous libre d'indiquer vos questions dans notre chat pour les adresser à Anthony. Alors, une autre question. Que devrais-je faire si je ne m'entends pas bien avec mon patron? What should I do if I don't get along with my boss? Oh, that's a tricky question. Looking forward to hear your answer, Anthony, on that one.
Thanks, Valerie. So on that one, I think it's, you will most likely get to better results if you try and have honest conversations. So just talk about it. And I remember at one place where I worked at, I felt that my manager didn't trust me, and I asked him. I said, I feel you don't trust me, and he was really taken by surprise, and took the time to think. And he said, you know what? You're right. I don't trust you. And then we started talking about why, and that was a much better conversation. The other thing is that if you just don't get along, then you agree to disagree. And if you don't get along with your manager, it's probably not fun with your manager either. So if you can have a conversation and say, look, I don't think it's working well. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. But if it doesn't work and we don't think it's going to fix, and it's for constructive ways to part ways, right? So having your manager support your move to another organization or another team makes it a lot easier. So that's one of the things as well that can help.
So again, getting real, Anthony, that's what I'm hearing. Getting real, talking about real problem. That's good. Parler réellement, authentiquement des problèmes peut être une clé de solution. Merci. Une autre question, Anthony. Est-ce qu'il y a eu un point tournant dans votre carrière? Was there a turning point into your career?
Well, I think when I was let go, it was it was really hard. I had been recognized as a top performer everywhere I went, and they let me go, and I didn't understand why. And I had to understand that at the end of the day, again, although probably I was making really good and well-founded recommendations, overall I wasn't helping because I wasn't communicating in a way that made people feel good, made them feel better, was uplifting, and it's something that I still struggle with to this day. So that has been a really big turning point for me. It's really important. Like it's not about being right, not at all. It's about bringing and uplifting everybody towards just a better place to be.
Amazing. Bringing the workplace a better place to be. Thank you so much. That's a perfect conclusion for this session. Thank you so much. Since we're done with the question period, I want to first say the testimonial shared today will definitely be helpful for all public servants as we try to lead and keep ourselves engaged throughout these challenging times. Thank you so much, Anthony, and the NMC team for coordinating this event. I think that's this kind of event that we have to watch and watch again. So much material, idea, concept. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing so much. Et merci à tout le monde pour votre participation à cet événement. I want to thank you all participants for joining us today. We encourage you to stay connected with the NMC by checking out our website regularly for information on our next event. Joignez-vous à nous pour nos prochains événements début 2022. You can also follow our Twitter handle at NMC_CNG for all updates and registration details. Pour toutes les nouvelles de la CNG, suivez-nous sur les médias sociaux. Until then, best wishes, bonne fin de journée à tous, à la prochaine.
Bye tout le monde, merci beaucoup.